They didn't announce themselves when they came. No knock, no warning, no pause to reconsider. One moment I was alone in my penthouse overlooking the rain-soaked skyline of Alderwick City, reviewing inventory reports and thinking about nothing more dramatic than shipping delays. And the next my front door swung open like it belonged to them. My father entered first, his footsteps heavy and deliberate, carrying a thick binder tucked under his arm like a judge's gavel. My mother followed close behind, already wearing the expression she used when she wanted sympathy without accountability. Last came my older sister, her eyes moving too fast, scanning my space like a buyer at an auction. In that instant, I knew this wasn't a visit. It was a demand. The binder hit my glass table with a dull thud that echoed through the apartment, louder than it should have been. The sound cut through the air and settled in my chest. My father didn't greet me. He didn't even look at me at first. He simply said, "We need to settle what you owe," as if this conversation had already been agreed upon. The word owe lingered, heavy and deliberate. Behind him, my mother closed the door, sealing us inside together. My sister leaned against the wall, arms crossed, lips curling in quiet satisfaction. I felt surrounded, not physically, but strategically, like a chess piece they had waited years to corner. I didn't ask how they got in. I already knew the answer, and that knowledge tasted bitter. Years ago, when I still believed distance could fix dysfunction, I had allowed a spare key for emergencies. Apparently, they had redefined what an emergency meant. My phone was already in my hand before my pulse finished accelerating. I opened my security app slowly, deliberately, making sure none of them noticed. One by one, I removed their access permissions. When the system confirmed the changes with a soft chime, it sounded insignificant, almost polite. But to me, it felt like a door slamming shut on an entire chapter of my life. My mother noticed the silent stretch and mistook it for hesitation. She stepped forward, voice trembling in that rehearsed way that always made strangers side with her. She told me to open the binder and face the consequences of my selfishness, as if morality were something she still had authority over. I opened it. What I found inside wasn't rage-inducing at first. It was chilling. Pages upon pages of neatly printed spreadsheets. Rows, columns, subtotals, a lifetime reduced to line items. At the top, bold and unapologetic, was a title that made my vision blur. Expenses incurred raising Naomi Calder. I scanned the pages in silence. Infant care costs, school supplies, housing allocations, medical bills, even shared utilities calculated down to decimals. Then I saw it. A line labeled emotional support, billed hourly as if affection had been logged and invoiced. My fingers tightened around the page as I reached the final total. 398,000 credits, not including interest. It wasn't the number that made me dizzy. It was the certainty behind it. This wasn't a bluff. This was premeditated, rehearsed, and justified in their minds long before they walked through my door. I was 27 years old. I owned a logistics-driven design company that supplied modular interiors to corporate clients across multiple regions. I negotiated contracts worth more than that total every quarter. I understood valuation, leverage, and return on investment. And in that moment, I understood exactly what I was to them. Not a daughter, not family. I was a delayed payout. My father finally looked at me then, explaining calmly that no success happens in isolation, that the roof over my childhood head had been an investment, not a gift. He said it without malice. That terrified me more than anger ever could. As he spoke, memories rearranged themselves into something ugly but coherent. My sister, Mara, had always been their gamble. Endless ventures, half-formed dreams, failed businesses funded quietly behind closed doors. I had been the background option, ignored because I didn't demand attention, left alone long enough to grow unnoticed. Now that growth threatened them. They hadn't come because they needed money. They had come because control was slipping through their fingers and they couldn't stand it. When I refused to agree, calmly and without raising my voice, the room changed temperature. My father's composure cracked, his jaw tightening. My mother accused me of ingratitude. Mara wandered my apartment, touching furniture, inspecting fixtures, already imagining what she would take. She claimed my first business purchase years ago had been made using a shared account and therefore entitled her to half of everything that followed. 50%, she said flatly, or they would dismantle me legally, publicly, financially. They expected fear. They expected compliance. They underestimated how long I had been preparing for this exact moment without even knowing it. I told them to leave. The words felt heavier than any number on those pages. For a split second, old instincts screamed at me to apologize, to smooth things over, to survive. But then I looked around at the space I had built brick by brick, contract by contract, without their help or approval. I wasn't the quiet teenager anymore, fatting into corners. I was standing on ground I owned, and they were trespassers pretending entitlement was love. They left furious, but I didn't feel relief. I felt anticipation, the kind that hums low in your bones when you know retaliation is coming. I barely slept that night, running internal audits, checking access logs, confirming redundancies. At dawn, it happened. My banking access vanished. Accounts frozen. Transactions denied. Legal notifications followed within minutes. They hadn't waited. They had struck precisely where it would cripple me fastest. The timing was surgical. My largest product launch of the year was days away. Without liquidity, manufacturers wouldn't ship. Without shipments, contracts would collapse. They weren't trying to win in court. They were trying to starve me until I begged. Social media exploded next. Mara released a tearful video accusing me of betrayal and theft, carefully framed to invite sympathy. The public chose the simpler story. Sponsors hesitated. Orders stalled. My mother left a voicemail offering forgiveness in exchange for surrender. That was the moment fear died completely. In its place came something colder and far more useful: clarity. These weren't parents seeking fairness. They were aggressors exploiting proximity. And aggressors don't stop because you ask nicely. I called Jonah Hale, a legal strategist known for dismantling complex financial attacks. He didn't ask how I felt. He asked for documents. For 48 hours straight, we worked with forensic analysts, tracing money trails my father assumed no one would ever follow. By the time we entered the courthouse for the emergency hearing, my parents looked fragile, almost convincing. Their attorney painted a story of sacrifice and betrayal so polished it nearly worked. The judge leaned forward, visibly sympathetic. For a moment, it looked like I was about to lose everything. Then Jonah stood. He didn't argue emotion. He argued math. He demonstrated that the spreadsheet wasn't proof of debt, but evidence of undeclared taxable income. He exposed long-term misuse of employee pension, funds to cover Mara's failures. The courtroom went silent. The judge's expression hardened. The case was dismissed instantly and referred for criminal investigation. My father didn't look at me. He couldn't. Before I left, I handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was an eviction notice. I had quietly acquired their mortgage debt months earlier after noticing irregular filings. They had already defaulted. The sheriff was serving papers as we spoke. Outside, chaos erupted. My father charged toward me in rage, but Mara ran past him, jumped into their car, and drove away without a glance. I watched, unmoved. The monster they had protected had finally abandoned them. That evening, I deleted their contacts, lifted the freeze on my accounts, and watched orders pour in. The launch succeeded beyond projections. They lost everything trying to own me. I gained something far more valuable: freedom. If you've ever built yourself while others tried to dismantle you, you already understand.